Hello everyone. Thank you for your patience, and I apologize for our untimely start. We had a lot to do in the last hour. Since 6 p.m. this evening, the board has been in closed session for discussion of lawfully closed meeting minutes for the purpose of approval of the body of the minutes, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular district have been filed or pending before a court or administrative tribunal, sale, purchase of securities, investments, or investment contracts, and finally, the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the district. So with that, I would entertain a motion to come out of closed session, please.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to come out of closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. I want to welcome everyone this evening, those on the World Wide Web, which I'm sure there's zillions, and those in the audience, and remind everyone of our mission, again, is to educate students to be self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. And with that, we'll take a roll call. Ms. Bell, please.
Student ambassadors present, Austin Hansen and Stephen Trainer. Board members present, Kristen Fitzgerald, Susan Price, Terry Fielden, Jackie Romberg, Mike Yench, Susan Crotty, and Donna Wanke.
And if, thank you very much. And if we can, I'm going to digress just a moment before our special guests come in, and I'll defer to our superintendent in a second.
Just Board President Romberg and I spoke briefly just prior to the beginning of this Board of Education meeting, as it's our first Board of Education meeting since we lost a dear friend and valued colleague and important person in our school community, in our school district, whose impact, Susan Stuckey's impact as the principal of Highlands Elementary School certainly has gone well beyond just Ranch View, where she began as principal in our district, and also Highlands, but into our entire community, and that was reflected in the outpouring of support, emotion, and just love that we felt from the community over the past couple of weeks, and I know that her family was completely overwhelmed. But Board President Romberg and I would like to just ask your indulgence in just a moment of silence to personally reflect and think about the impact that Susan Stuckey's had on the children and our community. So if we could ask for your indulgence for a moment, please. Thank you. And as her mantra was, it's all about the kids, it's an appropriate time now to invite our kids in and begin our board meeting. So, Mr. Freund.
Thanks for having us this evening. I'd like to introduce you to four of our wonderful students at BB. We have Vivian Scott, one of our fifth graders. We have Jenna Norris, one of our fourth graders. Leah Norris, one of our second graders, and Adelaide Scott, one of our second graders, to lead us in the pledge this evening. Girls? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great segue, Superintendent Bridges. All about the kids.
All right, just a couple items of good news for the Board of Education and our community. Great news for us is the fact that kindergarten registration and readiness for kindergarten for next year is underway. I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of some opportunities to learn about our district kindergarten program for incoming families this Thursday night at Elmwood at 7 p.m. This is for parents sending their oldest or only child to kindergarten, or for parents that are unsure about the best option for their child, and with information about our all-day program as well as information about half-day. Kindergarten preview meetings at each elementary school are being scheduled throughout the month of February, and dual language kindergarten at Elmwood on March 6th at 6:30. So a number of opportunities for our community to get more information about upcoming kindergarten year. And now that Julie's back in the room, more great news for us and more recognition of the significant community engagement that this district has enjoyed over the past, really over almost a full year now. Congratulations to Julie and her team who have been recognized by INSPRA, and I can never remember, I know what it is, National National School Public Relations Association has accepted Julie's proposal for submittal at their 61st annual seminar on the National School Public Relations Association National Conference on Winning the Battle for Public Education in Baltimore Education. Topic of the presentation is Educate, Collaborate, Communicate, Engaging Your Community. So we'll wish Julie and her team well in their presentation. I think certainly it reflects on the great work that was done in this process. So great news and congratulations, Julie.
Awesome, awesome. Next, we have public comment, and for the community at large that's not familiar with that, it's a time when anyone in the community can come and speak to the board. If you're an individual, you have 3 minutes, and if you are representing a group, you have 5 minutes. And I have one person, Jane Bregeman, who has come to speak this evening, and it looks like you're speaking as an individual.
I'm representing
A group, okay. Oh, Northern Illinois. Oh, sorry about that. I'm looking below that. So, Jane, if you could mention your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. So, thank you.
Jane Bergman, 630 North Slate in Naperville.
There's a double blue light. You should.
Perfect, thank you.
Should I pull it toward me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Tonight, I'm officially speaking as a representative of a group called Northern Illinois Jobs with Justice. But personally, as a career educator, I'm speaking on behalf of the children whose educational development stands to be harmed by virtual, meaning online, charter schools. It seems that many in Illinois, including lawmakers, think that all charter schools are doing great. This, of course, is a carefully managed image that does not always match reality. Well-publicized details continue to emerge which highlight problems associated with many charters. Consider the recent article in the Sun-Times that exposed how Illinois Speaker Mike Madigan used his clout to sway the Illinois State Charter School Commission to approve 2 new concept charter schools in Chicago, after the CPS, Chicago Public Schools, turned them down due to poor performance. This commission is clearly vulnerable to political manipulation. Last spring, D203U, along with 17 other area districts, received a charter school application from K-12 Inc., a Wall Street-traded corporation which offers an online curriculum to children from kindergarten to 12th grade, designed to completely replace attending school. All 18 school districts wisely voted no to that. K-12 Inc. then appealed to the Illinois State Charter School Commission, but before a commission could rule on the appeal, concerned Springfield lawmakers passed a moratorium on virtual charter schools. That moratorium will soon expire. Our primary purpose to be here tonight is to make you aware of proposed legislation that would dissolve the Illinois State Charter School Commission and restore statewide authorizing responsibilities to the Illinois State Board of Education. House Bill 3754 was recently introduced by State Representative Linda Chapalavia. In the Senate, State Senator Kimberly Lightford introduced similar SB 2627. Why get rid of the Illinois Charter School Commission? Well, first of all, we didn't need it in the first place. Prior to 2011, in the creation of the commission, the Illinois State Board of Education evaluated appeals from charter schools. Secondly, the commission can take anonymous contributions from anyone, including organizations seeking a charter approval from the commission, including anyone who stands to profit financially or politically or both. Thirdly, the commission was designed to override local school districts' objections to both the brick and mortar and virtual charter schools formations, primarily in districts outside of Chicago, such as ours. Here is what you, as a school board and other concerned citizens, can do to help. Support these bills and the effort to get rid of the Illinois State Charter Schools Commission. Contact our State House and Senate members and ask them to support and co-sponsor these bills. Contact the Illinois Association of School Boards and the Illinois Association of School Administrators and ask them to support the bills. And thirdly, or next, and this is a little close, but as some of you are already aware of this meeting, on Thursday in Batavia, there's a panel discussion featuring well-known local and national experts addressing charter school effectiveness. The event is titled, Are Charter Schools Really Performing Better? I've shared informational flyers to the with the board members. With your support, we can close the door on K-12 Inc. and on any other politically connected charter schools that do not meet the approval of our elected school boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks very much. Okey doke, our communications is our next section, and we will hear from our student ambassadors. And I don't know which order you're going to go in, but we'll be surprised. Here we go, Heist.
Thank you. Well, it's been a good start to the second semester. It's been kind of slow, though. However, this week we are emphasizing our Beta 3 anti-bullying program with a purple out this Friday for the North Central basketball game to raise awareness for anti-bullying. And this past weekend, our cheerleaders placed fourth in their competition. And also coming up on our calendar is our winter dance. We picked the theme of 1920s, all that jazz. So it's going to be like a Craig Gatsby theme. So we're encouraging everyone to attend, even if they don't have a date. And we're really pushing for that to be a good success. Another thing I wanted to point out was on the calendar, it's actually January 25th coming up, Youngster Youth is happening. And I had some experience with the NEF last year, and it's a great program to attend to support a organization that really does a lot for our school. So I just wanted to point that out, and hopefully that's a great success. Thank you.
Steve.
We have also have a couple congratulations to recognize. Our varsity cheerleaders won first place at the Northern Illinois University Invite on Sunday, and our show choir had a very successful first weekend of competition, won many different awards, which is really cool. So that was really cool. Chris Heron, I've been talking about him a lot. He's officially coming, and we have the dates. There was a press release, and we officially are releasing it to the press. He is speaking to the community February 18th and to our school February 19th. The community event is at night, and obviously school is in school. But if you guys have a chance to come out and see him, I know you have a board meeting on the 18th.
Yeah.
But if you're available, maybe even to sneak in during the school the next day, I would really highly encourage it. He's by far the best speaker I've ever seen on this topic.
If I could just interrupt for just 1 second, because I think it's important to note, I spoke with Principal Pops for the board. The meeting was really dictated by Mr. Heron's schedule and availability. He wanted to try to avoid any conflict with board meeting or other district events, but his schedule wouldn't allow. So in the importance of this topic and having this meeting, we went ahead and did it. So.
Right. Busy guy. Also, Naper Bridge, our local teen center, will be hosting 2 community dances in partnership with the Naper Park District at the barn the next couple weeks. This Saturday, there's a blacklight dance for all high school students, District 203 and 204. And then there's a whiteout dance for junior high students Saturday, February 1st, which we're expecting well attendance for both. Naperville North Student Government has selected a spring dance theme. However, it's top secret, so I can't share with you at this time. As Stephen mentioned, we have a North First Central basketball game, and you better believe the Huskies are going to come out pretty strong. We are also doing a purple out for anti-bullying. February 5th is our National Signing Day. We have 14 Huskies signing onto the NCAA. And then February 7th, Naperville North High School is inducting 7 people into our Hall of Fame. So there's lots of different things to look forward to.
Austin, I have a question. A couple of community members have asked me. Naper Bridge,
Yes.
which is the this phenomenal teen center.
Right.
Are junior high students encouraged to go as well?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Our
I'll
open,
make sure.
yeah, after school hours, and we have specific hours for junior high and high school students.
Great.
So,
And I was tickled that our minutes reflected, not that they don't reflect everything, they do, but that tutors were, during finals week, some teachers volunteered their time to come to
Yeah.
that, or to go to Naper Bridge, especially for the freshmen. It's phenomenal.
right.
So.
Phenomenal people in our
Well, thank
district.
goodness in the minutes, because the world can then read them, because
Right.
everybody pores over those minutes. So
Yeah.
the other thing about the 18th and 19th event, will we be able to find out what time on the 19th? Okay, that'd be great, just so we can.
It'd be really cool if you guys could.
Yeah. I'd love to. The 18th, you won't
Yeah.
see us. I'm hoping you won't see us.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
yeah.
got to corral everyone.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both so much, and thank you for being here. Remember, watch your time whenever school comes first, but we so appreciate your perspective. Written communications, in board docs, you can take a perusal through there and see if there's any, I think there was one item. And next on our agenda is superintendent staff school report.
Okay, we have one report to share this evening. We have a group that will be doing the presentation. It involves Carol Hetman, Jen Hester, Kitty Ryan, and others that are certainly impactful of the presentation itself, including the one and only Mark Bailey, who's sitting out in the audience this evening.
Lonely, I might add.
For the past couple of years, we've been working collaboratively with the NUEA to address and understand changes required in teacher evaluation mandated under para and other legislation. So tonight, the administrators will be providing the Board of Education with an update on the work of the Teacher Evaluation Committee to be able to respond to any questions you might have about upcoming changes to that process. So, Carol?
Good evening. Dr. Hester, Mrs. Ryan, Mr. Ross, and I will be providing you with an overview of the changes in certified staff evaluations mandated by para. We'll give you an explanation of the work our evaluation committee has accomplished, and then finally provide you with a timeline for future work that the committee will do on certified staff evaluations. As a brief reminder, Governor Quinn signed the Performance Evaluation Reform Act in 2010, which requires all schools in Illinois to change how teachers and principals' performance is measured. The new process addresses practice and adding student growth as a significant factor in the rating of a teacher's performance. Although the state does not require the district to use a specific framework, there is a requirement to use a research-based framework to evaluate instructional methods, planning, classroom management, competency in the subject matter taught, and attendance. Other plan components are to provide specific comments on teachers' strengths and weaknesses with supporting reasons for the comments. New summative ratings were required beginning September 1st, 2012. There are 4 ratings: excellent, proficient, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory. Student growth is a significant factor in the rating of a teacher's performance, and the plan must identify at least 2 types of assessments for evaluating the teacher. Finally, the state mandated that all evaluators of certified staff be trained and pre-qualified in order to conduct evaluations. Our 100 evaluators were trained and qualified by the deadline, which was September 1st, 2012. You'll see on this slide our evaluation committee comprised of administrators and our union, NUEA. The evaluation committee's concern is to produce a teacher evaluation process whose primary focus is on teacher growth.
In a moment, Mrs. Ryan is going to walk you through this chart, talking about requirements of PIRA and our status. And it's important that we comply with PIRA, and we have so far, and we certainly will. It's also good for us to keep in mind that we're not only doing this to comply with PIRA. Teacher evaluation is very important to us in District 203 for many reasons. 2 of the big ones are certainly for employment decisions. We need evaluations for that. But also to help certified staff get better at their craft. Where the rubber hits the road for us is in the classroom with the teachers, with certified staff. And it's our job as administrators to help teachers be better teachers, because that helps students learn better. And so teacher evaluation is a very strong vehicle for us for that. And we want to make sure everyone keeps that in mind.
And I'd like to take a minute and explain some of the things that you see up on this slide. As you can see, this slide details our progress towards meeting our PARA requirements. As we look at what's listed here, it's important to note that we've made strides in a number of areas. As Mrs. Hetman mentioned, all evaluators are now trained or pre-qualified and have passed the rigorous testing required. She also noted that instead of the 3 performance ratings that we'd used in the past, we now have 4: excellent, proficient, satisfactory, and unsatisfactory. You also see noted that we've added information to the summative document that the evaluator prepares for the teacher. While areas of strength and areas for future growth were always a part of a sound evaluation, they are now formally required as is by para, as is attendance. On this slide, you also see a note that teachers can be rated as needs improvement. When that happens, when an evaluator rates a teacher as needs improvement, the evaluator and the teacher develop a professional development plan focused on areas of concern and monitored throughout the evaluation cycle. When an evaluator rates a teacher as unsatisfactory, the evaluator, other building and district administrators, in consultation with the board attorney, design and supervise a rigorous remediation plan. You'll also see noted on this slide that student growth will be required in 2016 as part of the evaluation of a teacher's practice. At this time, we're studying a number of student growth models so that we can select one that meets the requirement and, most importantly, does so in a meaningful and effective way. The last item on the slide refers to the para requirement to adopt an evaluation framework. Carol Hetman noted that requirement earlier. For many years, we've used Charlotte Danielson's work. This year, we agreed with the evaluation committee to move to Danielson 2013. We believe that it will add improved depth and clarity to the evaluation process. That kind of sums up where we are right now in terms of our work towards para compliance. Dr. Hester.
All right. The Danielson 2013 rubric was selected because it's a robust framework. It's widely used across the nation, and it's supported by research. The framework organizes instructional practice into 4 domains of teaching. Those domains are planning and preparation, classroom environment, professional responsibilities, and instruction. Each domain is further organized into components and elements that specifically describe what research-based best practice looks like. Now, as Mrs. Ryan has mentioned, we've had the Danielson framework for some time in our district. However, there was a new version of the rubric and the framework that was produced in 2011. And in that framework, it includes critical attributes for each level of performance. It has more precise language in each of the rubrics that describes the practice and examples for teachers and evaluators so that we can better understand what that practice looks like. In 2013, the rubric was revised again, and it was revised to incorporate some of the themes that are very current in education today, such as alignment to movements with standards for differentiated instruction, culturally responsive practices, and then many other different themes. As we look at the timeline for future work, in adopting the 2013 Danielson framework, this was a very key decision for the committee, and it was made to maximize the effectiveness of that framework. In October and November, the committee engaged in professional development with a consultant from the Danielson Group. The purpose of that professional development was to learn about the framework and consider the means and the content for providing more professional development for all of our evaluators, and then extending that professional development to our teaching staff. In December, I think Mrs. Ryan already alluded to this, but Mr. Waranga helped us by helping us to learn about different models for measuring student growth. And then as current as today, we began the work of considering how we'll house the framework in the future as we move to electronic versions of that framework. And then in June or July of this summer, our evaluators will all have the opportunity to attend 2 days of professional learning on the teacher evaluation framework that will provide more in-depth understanding for them.
And I'm going to walk us through the next couple years on the timeline, and then we'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have. In 2014-15, next school year, by then we'll have our new framework in place for teacher evaluation. We'll do some professional development for all certified staff on the Danielson framework. Our evaluation committee will continue to learn about different student growth models. We expect the committee will select some groups to test different student growth models. And next year is the time that we expect to implement that technology solution that the different solutions we're looking at now. Moving ahead to the 15-16 school year, we expect during that year to broaden the test group so we could evaluate the performance of additional models. And the official PIRA Joint Committee will begin meeting, we expect, in January of 2016. As we roll around to September of 2016, which is a big deadline for PIRA, that's the PIRA implementation date, and we will implement new certified staff evaluation with the student growth model at that time. Can we answer any questions?
Very good. Questions? Stenna?
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited about where we're at on this. For your 15-member committee that you have there, I know, all your administrators and Mark Bailey. The other people on the committee, I was just curious about the demographic. Like, have we made sure that all levels, multiple buildings have been kind of allotted for in those people?
Mark's nodding his head. That's as good of an indication as any. But yes, that was a deliberate decision about the committee, the formation of the committee, to ensure that there was diverse representation on the committee from an UEA standpoint.
Okay, and then I have one question on the Danielson framework, the 2013. I actually have two. So looking at the 4 domains, can you give me a little bit more information on the classroom environment?
So the classroom environment really looks at rapport and respect in that environment. It looks at whether the materials and the resources are set up to maximize student learning. It actually, there are elements in that domain that parallel with instruction and that support the instructional design.
So we're not entirely looking at the physical environment of the classroom?
You're looking at the physical environment, yes, but then there's much more to that. So whether I as a student walk in and I feel respected and my learning expectations are set up in a way that I understand them.
So as a new high school teacher very often does not have their own classroom environment. They are utilizing a classroom that maybe is mostly used by a teacher that's in that room for the most of the day. So I remember there being a time where I had this much bulletin board and that was it. So have we accounted for that?
Yes, and it really is much more than that. So out of the, like I said, the domains are broken down into components and then elements. Okay. So one of those components would be specific to that physical environment, whereas the other components actually would hit the other areas of classroom environment.
Okay, thank you.
After all the kids have to go through all the rubrics, I think it's just so funny that the tables have been turned. What is this going to allow you to do differently? And how is this, going to take you to the next step? And Jen, I have to compliment you. You're every week or every meeting, you're always on the hot seat. And I still feel like you're new, even though you're not really new. And I'm always like, amazed. You always have the answers for whatever it is we're talking about from all over the spectrum. So kudos to you, really. I don't know if you ever sleep, but
Only when you drive.
Yeah. It's a good thing I have a short commute.
yeah.
So you're asking how it will impact or change?
Yes.
I think any of us here could answer that. So it might be good to hear everyone's perspective, but I think that the critical attributes that are a part of the new framework are incredibly helpful. And I think what they do is make it so that it's much more clear about what it looks like at every level of performance, from the highest level to a level that we would hope to support a teacher improving on. And in those critical attributes, they kind of give you a looks like, sounds like. And I think that's one of the things that happens. I think the other thing that we don't want to miss in this, and it was part of our training for the pre-qualification, is the collaborative process. and that no matter what happens with our evaluation process with student, as we add the student growth component, that's going to be very new for all of us, that we continue to make it a collaborative conversation between the teacher and the evaluator, and that we don't make it a negative experience, a gotcha, or a competition.
And Carol, with the bricks that we've set up for the teachers to walk along their career path, will this play a part of it because you'll have that skill set? Sometimes when teachers say, I want to do this or I want to do that, and their administrator's saying, I see you doing this or that, is this going to help with that? Will those kind of fit together?
I think that the hope is that within the dialogue that happens between the evaluator and the teacher, that those discussions can surface. And that's another means to have that discussion, to look at where perhaps either areas of growth or where someone sees themselves going from a professional perspective. So that access to can open up access to the bricks.
Thank you.
For these evaluations, are they planned, are they unexpected, or is it a mixture? I was just kind of curious on that.
Peter, there are some announced observations. A teacher knows that they're coming, where the teacher knows that the evaluator is going to come, and then sometimes they're not announced.
Okay.
And we hope for a mix of both of those kinds of experiences.
Thank you.
Thanks for the summary. This is a great description of it, and it's exciting to see all the things that you have done and all the things that you have planned. I also think that your committee is a great committee with lots of good representation, so I'm sure you'll have great work. I just have a couple questions about the Danielson framework. So you mentioned that it's more precise than the past, but based on the past. So I was noting as you went, the past frameworks that you've utilized. So I was noticing that you'll start working towards evaluating teachers, I think, next year. Is that next year or is that the next year? I guess 2014, 2015. But the new framework will be in place in 2014, 15, and then you'll also be having the professional development. So I was wondering, this won't be unfamiliar for teachers, though, even though you're starting the evaluation process right as you're starting the professional development. The professional development they've had up till now is going to have contributed to that as well, right? Because this is a new version of the framework, but a similar framework. Is that right?
That's correct. It's very similar. I think the new one is better. I think it's richer.
Yeah.
But yes, teachers are familiar. They've been evaluated under that model. I don't know in what year we started using it. It's been 10 years. 2002, Mr. Bailey reports.
Okay.
So yes, teachers are very familiar with it. I'll tell you though, I've been with teachers as we've studied the model a little closer, and I've not once had a teacher say, gee, I don't think that should be a part of Domain 2. That's not an important part of teaching, or why is that there? What we see is teachers who teach all day long who take a closer look at the model and say, yeah, that makes sense, or they ask some questions, and generally the reaction, and I can't see him, but I'll bet you Mr. Bailey is nodding in the affirmative.
Now he's smiling.
Generally the reaction is, yeah, that makes sense. Let's learn a little bit more about that. So it's not that there's any surprises. Maybe as we get so caught up sometimes in our daily work, we don't stop and think about each of these things, and it's wise and good to read through, think about, reflect on that, and try to be sure to incorporate it into our practice. We've seen that happen some, and I expect that'll happen a great deal as we move forward with that professional development.
So the response has been pretty overwhelmingly positive with the teachers that you've talked to. It's familiar and it's intuitive in terms of, is what it sounds like what you're saying.
Well, there's a lot of work to it, but I think I don't want to speak for our teachers. I've not heard any, that's a bad way to say it. In my experience in District 203, teachers have embraced the Danielson model.
Okay, great. That's great. Thank you.
I think everybody likes an evaluation because, mostly it's about you when you're being talked about, and we're all egocentric, so, except for myself. The student growth aspect, is there any, can you give us any overarching parameters that might be used to kind of, how that's going to be measured, or?
There's several different models. The law basically outlines that in 2016 in the fall, that you have to pick, instead of up to this point, measurements have been just in a summative basis. You get one test, you look at that one test. Whereas in this process, you have to look at two different scores, and you have to look at how far the students have come in that process. And you have to measure it on two different targets. So you have to look at the different types of tests we have, and the law actually outlines the type of tests that should be used and how those are formulated. And then this, the process will then be selected by coordination with the union and this in the joint committee, and select which model that will be. To give you a little bit of an example, if you think about how we did the school improvement process this last year, when you looked at the school report card, the state actually kind of modeled a step like that, where they said, instead of just looking at the summative score at the end of the year, they also gave a growth table that was an example of a type of growth model that showed how students had done from the year previous to this past year and how much they had grown in that process.
It's not really a question as much as a comment. You know, one thing that I noticed when we were, or thought about when we were talking about this is, it struck me how much we take for granted the involvement and the collaboration with our union. That is not a given in other school districts, and I can't tell you how many districts I've talked to in the state and in the country where it's sometimes unheard of. And I think that's one of the things that makes our district so successful, because you cannot have a successful program like this or like Career 203 without the buy-in of the teachers. And our teachers have been wonderful in working with us and making this successful, and we heard that tonight. I mean, when you look at the, I think the majority of the people on the committee were teachers. I didn't count them, but at least a significant portion of them. And that's what makes it work. And so I commend the administration. I commend Mark Bailey and the union for their participation and being actively involved in making this this program in this district so successful. So thank you for that.
Wonderful comments, Mike, and I know Mark will take that back to his leadership and those wonderful comments. So that's awesome. Any other comments or questions thus far? Okay. Okie doke. Thank you. Thank you, team evaluation committee. Team evaluation. I was thinking, oh, that's kind of crazy to say that. President's report, I just have one comment tonight to make. On February 24th, which is a Monday, we will have a meeting in closed session to do what is called a board self-evaluation. Our last one was a little over 2 years ago in November of 11. And this will be our first one with Superintendent Bridges. No, I was trying to decide what to call you. I couldn't call you Mr. Bridges. That's your dad. And so anyhow, Superintendent Bridges, and it will be great. They're wonderful. It's a very, as everyone tells us, we have such a respectful group of board members and high functioning, and I'm repeating what people have told me, a high functioning board. A facilitator from IASB is there that evening, and there's they call it an instrument survey that they'll send around. Dan will receive it. He'll send it out to Ann. Will send it out, but they have to send it to the superintendent. You'll have 2 weeks to complete it. There are many different portions of it, and I think you'll. It's an evening well spent, and that will be from 5 till 8 on the 24th. So, any other board reports to mention? Okie doke. Then the monthly reports are listed here or here for your reference: Treasurer's report, investment, insurance report, budget report. And without further ado, we will ask our colleague this evening, Donna Wanke, who did bills and claims, if she could present a motion for us.
So I have a motion to accept the action by consent for 8.01 bills and claims. I move approval of warrant number 385285 through warrant number 386091, totaling $22,755,120.40 for the period of December 17th, 2013 to January 21st, 2014, and also 8.02 and 8.03.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, sorry about that. We have a motion and a second. I would have gotten stuck there for the consent agenda. And I will ask for a vote, please.
Romberg,
Yes.
Fitzgerald. Aye. Wanke,
Yes.
Yench,
Aye.
Prati. Yes. Price,
Yes.
Fielden,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And next, always a popular and very necessary agenda item, the draft 2015-2016 calendar.
I'm going to turn this in just a moment over to Deputy Superintendent Kane Osborne, who has led and facilitated the committee, again, made up of membership of NUEA as well as the administration, to review criteria established by the Board of Education in consideration of a future calendar. This is a 15-16 tentative calendar, and I'll let Kane walk the Board of Education. It's been provided for the board, and upon direction from the board this evening, we'll make this available for review and bring it back at the second meeting in February for potential action. So, Kane?
I would like to start by thanking Mr. Bailey, Lisa Yost, Michael McManus, Tina Dome, Mr. Ross, Ms. Ryan, Andrea Shapansky, and a parent from the community, Carol Nath, who served on the committee. All very helpful, great conversations about the calendar in general, and this one particularly for 15-16. Just things to point out. The calendar does comply with the criteria that you confirmed at the previous board meeting. You can see from it that, or another attachment also points out the specific instances in the calendar related to when breaks are and so forth. But otherwise, it does confirm or adhere to those criteria that you confirmed at the previous board meeting. You will notice that for this year, it was proposed that winter break begin on Wednesday, December 23rd. That does push back the break. There was a very good conversation about the advantages to that. One, of course, is that it does a better job to balance out the semesters. Additionally, though, some conversation was held that this has been done in the past when it's available based on when the holidays fall over that break. And also, just general feedback was that after the sort of hectic nature of the holidays, there's an actual break afterwards where families can relax before coming back to school. And that was one of the added advantages that was noted about having the break at that time. Additionally, something you'll notice is that the spring parent-teacher conferences were moved out of their traditional March date and moved to February 25th and 26th. A regular sort of critique of the traditional calendar has been that March is very difficult instructionally because of spring break, because of conferences, and because of testing. So we looked at options, and February 25th and 26th actually has the spring conferences falling at the exact same time as they do in the fall semester in terms of number of days and weeks. So that was something that makes for some symmetry, and also the consensus was that by having it at that time, there's more opportunity after conferences for parents and kids to work together on what they've learned at conferences for students to improve, more semester, more instructional time during which they can improve during the rest of the semester. So that was yet another seen advantage to that. And other than that, I'm open to any questions that you have about what you see in front of you.
Can you speak to how the committee looked at testing and how you kind of plays into this?
Yes, the balance in the testing. One of the questions that had come up earlier, was in looking at the balance between semesters, taking into account testing days. We made a very conservative estimate right now of the equivalent of 2 instructional days given over to standardized testing in the spring. Right now that's ISAT or PSAE. It will be PARC in the future. Based on the feedback we're getting about how long PARC will take, it'll take 2, no more than 4 days for PARC testing in the spring semester. But right now, until we field test it and really know, it's tough to estimate. And it'll take a different amount of time based on the grade level. So we went ahead and stuck with the conservative estimate of 2 days, instructional days equivalent for spring testing. We also took those 3 half days that are given over to staff development in the spring and counted that as 1.5 equivalent instructional days. When you take those into account, the difference between semesters in this calendar is only 2.5 instructional days. In the future, there will be other things to consider, including the potential of park testing in the fall. But we have gotten no confirmation as to when that might be, whether or not it's optional, whether or not we would take that option if it were the case, and how long it might take. So it wasn't very prudent to try to conjecture so much at this point. Anything I'm forgetting on testing, Mr. Waringa? No? Okay, and that's what those factors helped us construct the calendar as we're proposing it to you tonight.
Good. Questions? Susan?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just go over how finals work at the high school? Because usually that last day of finals is like a makeup day and the lunch hours. So I was curious, so that would take the kids having finals Thursday, Friday, and Monday?
Traditionally, if it's 3 days.
It's it's usually 4, but it's really the...
Right, but the fourth one is really
Yeah.
makeup. Yeah, so it would work the same way then, where it would be Thursday, Friday, Monday, with the 22nd being that additional that day you're speaking of, with conflicts being resolved. So,
Okay.
Or if they have multiple exams and they opt to go on
right,
that
they
day.
choose then to move
Right.
one of them to that day so that they're reducing their conflict.
And I had one other question. On the 15th, where was I? The 15th of January, that's an institute day. Is that the county one or our
No.
school one? It's a half day,
That's
half day institute day. I was curious if you considered, tying that in, I guess we have President's Day off.
Yeah, it's already tied into a weekend.
That
It's
weekend.
tied into Martin Luther King Day weekend.
Yes.
Just like this weekend.
Yep.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
It's consistent in that regard.
I was trying to, it feels like we've started and stopped, especially since we had those 2 days.
Right, the way we
those 2
started with
days
the
off.
weather
Yeah.
has been different, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. It answered almost all of my questions, but I just have one, which was, and it was actually just with relation to your discussion about the testing. Do you not account for a performance series, the time for that, or no? Because you were mentioning the 2 days, but I know, like, for example, my children have been doing last week and this week the performance series. Does that count as a part of that? And don't you take
Let me
those-
speak to how we've historically talked about the impact of testing on the calendar. We've specifically, the balance of the semesters is most critical as an issue at the high school level.
Yeah.
And when we've looked at the balance of semesters of days, we looked at the spring testing days for PSAE, when the only thing that occurred on those whole days was testing of our freshmen through juniors. Okay. So there's no other instruction. It was only the assessment. So absolutely no instruction. On days when we do performance assessment,
We count
other
those
instruction
because
continues.
It's
and-
only
correct.
like a portion.
Any other comments or questions? Kane, I have to tell you, big gold star, because we have never had, not in my 7 years or 8 years. So anyhow, awesome.
Well, that's because he did such a good job following our guidance, which
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
let's bring it back to ourselves.
I
No,
will admit-
awesome job.
I will admit we, with Kane, have taken a lot of time to look at previous board meeting film, read minutes, and ensure that we had all
No,
of
it's
the
great.
criteria
It's
right on.
very, and truly, it's very, very thoughtful. And I, just as an aside, I had a parent stop over after school for a Girl Scout cookie order, and I just said, hey, what do you think of that split week? She said, oh my gosh, parents love it. That around December, just to give an idea, they love it. They think the re-entry for students is wonderful. So anyhow.
So just let's talk about next steps. The calendar will now be posted on the website for review.
Right.
At the next general home and school meeting, it'll be presented for feedback from parent. It'll come back to you for action at the second February meeting, which is February 18th.
Great. Awesome. Well, it gives a lot of time for reflection if people have some comments about that. So thank you very much. And now to discussion with action, literacy resources for grade 1 through 8.
The January 6th Board of Education meeting, Dr. Hester and her team with Jane Willard presented information to the Board of Education on the literacy resources for grades 1 through 8. No new information at this time. The resources have been posted on our website. Dr. Hester could answer any questions that the board may have.
And I just had one clarification that was answered for me. In the old days, the current thought process is just putting it on the website. So these periodicals, if you will, or resources are not at the library, which I don't personally have a problem with. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. So great. Any other questions or comments?
I move approval of literary resources for grades 1 through 8 as presented.
Okey-doke. Thank you. We have a motion and a second for literacy resources for grade 1 through 8. Ms. Bell, please.
Crotty?
Yes.
Fielden?
Yes.
Romberg?
Yes.
Wonky?
Yes.
Yench?
Aye.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Price?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next agenda item is Online and Blended Learning Consortium Phase 2.
Also, at our last Board of Education meeting, Dr. Hester and John Davidson presented information to the Board of Education on the summary of work of Phase 1 on our consortium work and information to the Board of Education and a request to move into Phase 2. Dr. Hester has additional information that she can share with the Board of Education this evening, and I'll ask her to do that now.
Okay, so we learned in some of the more recent meetings with the consortium and some of the board meetings that occurred that Canelan School District has decided not to continue into Phase 2. Now, we're still awaiting a board meeting from Batavia. If you remember, Batavia is the last district to go, and they have one board meeting that month. So if we would just, to provide additional information for the board, regardless of whether it ends up being 4 districts or less than 4, our initial investment will continue to be the $85,000. And then if you think back to the budget that was provided, that $85,000 from the 5 districts provided some additional funds for investment. So even if we were to drop any more districts, we still have some money remaining to support the work for that initial investment. And then if we look into the proportional cost for the district, we stand to increase seats, if more districts were to drop. And then we also feel that one of the things that could happen is that we would experience a slight increase in some of the other proportionals, in the professional learning, in the LMS, or in some of the other areas. So that's the information that we wanted to let you know that we know at this time, and that we are still hoping for the approval to move forward with Phase 2. And the 3 main points are the equal voice in governance based on the initial investment, to use the continued consulting services of Evergreen, and to move ahead with the process of hiring the consortium director, which might happen a little bit later now if we would have fewer districts involved. And any questions you might have?
Any other questions, comments? Sure.
Can you explain on the slide with the costs why the ongoing content quote is more than the initial? It doesn't seem intuitive to me, and I was just curious.
Are you talking about the ongoing after year 1?
Right.
You're saying that it's more? Are you looking
Yeah,
at?
the year 1 is 10,000 and the ongoing is 15,000.
Oh, for content? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was looking at the total proposal.
No, I'm sorry. Content.
As we acquire more content. And then I think that's something that we'll have to readjust as we go to scalability and size, because our goal is to actually purchase that content, own it in-house, have the license for it, so that we can adapt and change it and use it more widespread.
Okay.
No.
Jen, just a quick question. I just looked it up. Canelan had 52 seats. Would that be done on a pro rata basis as you have seats now, or some equitable basis?
It would go right back to proportionality. So
Perfect.
we would look at the proportionality and determine the seats again.
I presumed that, but wanted to just ask. Great. Any more questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of, getting a little ahead of myself. I move approval of Online and Blended Learning Consortium Phase 2 as presented.
Great, thank you. We have a motion and a second for Online and Blended Learning Consortium, Phase 2. Ms. Bell?
Yench.
Aye.
Price.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Romberg.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Wonky.
Yes.
Crotty.
Yes.
Great, motion carries. Next agenda item, attendance area assignment, Arbor Trails.
At our last Board of Education meeting, Kane Osborne and team presented information and a recommendation to the Board of Education for assigning students in the newly developed Arbor Trails subdivision. We have a modification to that recommendation. I'll ask Kane to speak to that.
Yes, we, in looking at data that we had related to purchases of homes in the development and prior practice related to setting boundaries and grandfathering families in who might be affected by those boundaries, the team thought it was appropriate that we put in place grandfathering language that would make it possible for people, as you can see, who are currently enrolled in the district but living in this new attendance area to have a grandfathering option available to them if they had purchased not having it, made known to them what exactly the ramifications of that move would be at the time. And so we felt it was appropriate to make that available. Doesn't mean they'll necessarily use that option, and it would be very limited to a very small number of families going forward. But we thought it was appropriate to include that in the write-up.
Good. Questions or comments? Susan?
Kane, did you say that you were thinking that these students who would be across from Steeple Run would be bused across the street?
Yeah.
Kitty said that, I'm sorry.
We had our Department of Transportation conduct Illinois Department of Transportation assessment after this crossing survey, and it determined that it met the points of required transportation.
So when we did that before, they looked at other schools that
Mill Street, Scott School, whatever.
Yeah. Did you do that again this time as well?
There's a strict formula that they use. As a matter of fact, for example, Mill Street at Mill School has also been recently reevaluated, and it does not meet the criteria for the transportation. But yes, it was looked at.
Huh. I just.
But once it meets that transportation, we do get reimbursement from the state right now, don't we? Because they're being bused across a certain kind of road that fits the formula, yada, yada, yada.
Okay. Well, and that's why the objectivity is, it's not in our hands. We don't have the say in it, it sounds like. It's how it's deemed hazardous. So that was a question Kitty addressed for us last time, because Scott School also has what looks like 4 lanes of traffic. And
Yeah, but since that last Board of Education meeting, that question was raised, we've conducted that survey.
Great. Awesome. Any other comments or questions on, yes, Kristen?
Have you heard anything from the community, just out of curiosity, about this? Any feedback?
We did have one family inquiring about the final boundary decision that had moved in. So.
Okay.
I move approval of attendance area assignment and Arbor Trails as presented.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second for the attendance area assignment for Arbor Trails. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Bell?
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Wonky.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Romberg.
Yes.
Yench.
Aye.
Crotty.
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And next on our agenda, we have upcoming events. You can look, there's some exciting things, the Future Focus documentary, Yucks for Youth on Saturday evening, which was reported on, I love that, by our student ambassadors. And we don't do high school, we don't do specific school ones, so the 218, 219 event that Austin talked about, the drug program, we'll get the information on that. And without further ado, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Everyone's in shock.